We're taking a mother and an android to reach boiling point at 355. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Becks Perfect, and this is Offscreen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Welcome to Offscreen. Welcome to a new year. We're excited to keep you cinematic in 2022. And do you know what? We've got some corkers for you on the big screen, the small screen, and everything in between. So happy New Year and happy film watching. Van, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, Bex. The pandemic rages on. Western democracy lies in tatters, but let's talk some films.
Absolutely.
And you know what? And we've got a streaming one to kick us off this week, because what says the current state of film quite like a movie that goes to streaming? And the weird one with this one is it seems like kind of a retread of a very similar film starring the exact same actress that happened exactly 5 years ago and did nothing on theatrical. So let's talk about Mother Android, which I think you've seen as well.
Yes, I have. So it's an interesting scenario that you're faced with the moment this film starts. It's kind of, it opens up with Chloe Grace Moretz having found out that she's pregnant in the toilet with her partner. And they are at a house party where the servant or the server is actually an android. And a very humanoid android, should we say. And he's walking around, he's very almost stereotypical, yes sir, no sir, of course, what can I get you,
Mr. Belvedere
sir?
Type, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And they're all having a very jolly nice time, and then all of a sudden you see that the screens and the lights go a little bit shaky, and there's this weird loud noise, and suddenly the androids are on the loose. And you're stuck in a world where actually it's almost as if Skynet's taken over. You're running into 28 days later, and it all goes awry.
You ever hear of Karl Čapek?
Is that you?
No. He was a writer. Czech. In 1920, he wrote a play, Los Sumovis Universalni Roboti.
And what does it have to do with anything?
The play introduced the word robot to human language. And it ends with our extinction. We knew it was coming the second we gave it a name.
So it's not been long since, I think it's 5 years since we had, was it the fifth wave? Do you remember the fifth wave?
No, I was wondering what you were talking about with that film 5 years ago.
Back in the mid-2010s, when studios were falling over themselves trying to churn out these YA-appealing sort of sci-fi fantasy thrillers, and it was off the back of Twilight, which itself had come off the back of the popularity of Harry Potter, but off the back of Twilight, studios started going after the teen craze. Kind of like what happened after Scream with horror and teen horror. And this time around, we had Chloe Moretz taking a stab with an alien invasion one where she was forced into the woods and they had to lead the insurgency. And it was very sub-Maze Runner, very Mortal Instruments, very, you know what I mean? You know, all those YA adaptations that we got all in a row. And the weird thing is, she did that one that was very, very similar to this. This is, again, Chloe Moretz in the woods, sort of a YA vibe going on, because she's clearly meant to be like sort of college age. I think she and her partner Algie Smith are meant to be sort of college age kind of thing. And you had this survival of the fittest through the woods, take on the evil menace. Then it was aliens, now it's AI. The film doesn't quite work for the most part. There are times when it really does, and it's noticeable that when it gets to the interiors, it really works. When it's exterior and they have to rely on, for instance, visual effects that they don't have the budget for, or they have to create scope and grandeur, they can't quite cut it. But some of the internalized scenes do work. Some of the interior stuff do work. And even then, though, it does come with a caveat, which is this feels like what would happen if you gave a copy of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which you'll remember 13 years ago now, made for a really, really good but really, really bleak Viggo Mortensen movie. You gave that source material to a 12-year-old girl and said, right, what would you want us to make out of this? You might come up with something quite close to Mother Android, albeit if you then passed it through studio executives who micromanaged every stage of it. It is feature directorial debut for Mattson Tomlin, who's the screenwriter of The Batman, with Matt Reeves this next year. And the funny thing is that on the poster for this, it does say loud and above even Chloe Moretz's name, does say from a producer of The Batman.
I mean,
which is depressing.
does Chloe Moretz's name really hold much weight anymore? I mean, this is quite interesting. I'm not sure she's where she used to be in the days where she was dating Brooklyn Beckham. But it's an interesting movie because if she's made a choice very similar to this before and it tanked at theatrical, it's interesting to see that she's made a similar choice again. For me, you hit the nail on the head with budget. It doesn't feel like there is enough budget to do this movie what the justice that its director wants it to do, and that's the biggest problem.
Genuine question, because I know you're not necessarily a fan of the show, but you will have seen enough from advertising and clips and things to be able to answer this. Did this feel at any point to you like this wasn't even up to the production grade, for instance, of The Walking Dead, which this does ape a lot of times?
Yeah, 100%. Like, when I said that it kind of feels like a bit 28 Days Later. Now, think about 20 years ago when 28 Days Later was made.
Ooh, revolutionary.
Yeah, exactly. But the woodland. So basically, what happens in this movie is after that scenario in the house, you very quickly move into 9 months later where she's about to give birth and she finds herself having camped in the woods for years. And the rest of the movie, or the majority of the rest of the movie, is her doing quite action-y stuff in woods and broken down old houses. 9 months pregnant. She's the most active 9-month pregnant person I've ever seen in my life.
I was just going to say that there was a point when they say, you're due in a few weeks. You may as well stay around.
She was overdue.
She was overdue. Most active pregnant woman you've ever seen in your life. The thing is, it's not terrible. It's just really rote.
It's not
and
interesting.
Really worn, and that's it. You've just seen this done to death. There's nothing that's going to surprise you, and the plot mechanics and the twists and the shifts in it are all very predictable, which does lead me on very nicely to our next film, which suffers from another very similar case of here are all the twists, but boy, are you going to see them coming. New movie from Simon Kinberg. This one is theatrical. This is a theatrical exclusive for at least 45 days because it's Universal. Then it goes on Peacock and presumably our platforms as well. The 355, the latest Kinberg genre production. This is the all-star girl team-up actioner, for lack of a better. I'm reasonably sure before they titled it, when they just had the working title on a script, like they had untitled Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy, buddy cop female comedy that became The Heat. I'm reasonably sure this will be the same thing.
Are you talking about Widows, or are you talking about Ocean's 12?
Exactly.
What are we on about?
But that's the thing. You're getting ahead of me in the review because I'm going to make that point in a minute. But this is it. So what you've got effectively is sort of riff on Six Underground, except here you've got spies, female spies from different agencies around the world who have to team up against overlooking their personal grievances, their rivalries, etc. When the skeleton key to the internet falls onto the black market. Said team being led by Jessica Chastain, Diane Kruger, who stepped in to replace Marianne Cotillard by all accounts, because there is marketing for this that has Marianne Cotillard on it at times. Scene stealer Lupita Nyong'o, and we haven't seen her for a minute, so it's nice to see her back, Penelope Cruz, as the world's most action-friendly psychologist. Here's a little snippet for what you're in for.
Come on, go ahead. Pull the trigger, kill each other. Listen, I get it. You keep botching each other's ops. I'd be off too, but the only way we're gonna accomplish anything is if we join forces.
Are you crazy?
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We have a common enemy. I'm just suggesting you lower the guns long enough for us to sort this out and get on with it.
Who are you?
Khadijah, MI6. Marie, you've met Mace.
How'd you know my name?
We're spies.
When you started describing this, I immediately went, yawn, seen it all before. I mean, is there no original content out there? Is this like rinse and repeat in 2022?
This is so generic, and the thing is, when we came out the screening last night, they did the word banded around was generic. Everyone did seem to say this is really generic. It's fine, but it's generic. Oh, it's pretty good, but it's generic, and that seems to be that's the caveat that everyone comes back with. It's generic. It's perfectly fine for what it is, but as you just say, yawn. You've seen this before. there are different angles to come at this, and it doesn't come off well in any of them, if I'm being really honest. So first and foremost, this plot you've seen done to death. This plot, point for point, goes back to the first Mission Impossible movie, hilariously enough, and that's the weird thing, because I'm sat there thinking, which of these cast members have been in a Mission Impossible movie? And then you look into the backstory of this, and the story apparently goes that during production of the X-Men Dark Phoenix, which Simon Kinberg directed, Jessica Chastain, who was playing the villain in that one, turned round to him on the set and said, why don't you do something like Mission Impossible for girls? And so what they've done is literally evidently gone. She's a producer on this, it's worth noting. She's a hands-on producer. They have literally gone and gotten the script for the first Mission Impossible movie and just gender flipped the whole thing. It's the same movie. Literally, except it's got one sequence that seems to have been lifted wholesale from Ocean's 8. So you're literally getting the nail on the head when you make these comparison points. It's also the second movie I've seen in 6 weeks, the last one being Clifford the Big Red Dog, that falls into the realm of being a mainstream Hollywood blockbuster that feels the need to not only crowbar in an absolutely nauseating volume of pandering to Chinese audiences, but also going so far as to have the whole thing overseen by a mythical, benevolent Chinese billionaire. This has become the new deus ex machina of American cinema. If you need someone to get you out of things, just have a Chinese billionaire friend who happens to be the nicest, most charitable man in the universe. And it's always a man, incidentally, as well. That's the other thing you notice, because, female-friendly movie, villains, large, nearly all men, and then you've got this one good guy who happens to be the benevolent Chinese billionaire.
But why didn't they get someone like Maggie Q or, Michelle Yeoh or someone to play that, right?
That's the thing. Would Michelle Yeoh have not made the greatest Chinese... Anyway, beside the point, if you're going to see this, you're going to see this on the same level as something like Jason Bourne. Not The Bourne Identity, not The Bourne Ultimatum. You're going to see this as Jason Bourne. That's about the level you're going for. It's not 6 underground, it's literally 5 underground. And point for point, it looks and feels exactly the same. And you know what? That was generic as hell as well.
Welcome back to Off Screen. So we are keeping you on the big screen in 2022, and we're keeping you to a point where you might reach the boiling point. Yep, that is our next film. Sorry, that was a terrible segue. But I have to say, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this movie because it stars Stephen Graham, it stars Jason Fleming, and it is the story. It's an interesting one, actually. It's the story of a restaurant kitchen chef, head chef played by Stephen Graham, who is trying to keep himself and his team together on what seems like the busiest night of the year in the lead up to Christmas.
Such a buzz in this place. It's great.
No, it's busy.
Huh?
It's busy tonight. Yeah, very busy. I'm busy. We're super busy with the TV stuff and everything. It's gone mental. But, it's been amazing. The show's rocketing.
Yeah, I saw one episode. It was...
Not the only one that saw one episode. There's 7 million people watch it, so, full series. Must be doing something right.
Yeah, no.
This menu is I recognise all of this stuff. This is all my dishes. I love the way it's on a bit of paper, but there's the duck with the soy.
Yeah, that was my dish.
So this is an adaptation, apparently, of a short film that also starred Stephen Graham. So the story that goes here is that Philip Barantini, who's written and directed this, was an actor, had started out as, jobbing actor, and he'd gotten roles in things like Band of Brothers once upon a time.
Okay.
Every British actor alive, it seems, was in Band of... I think you're nobody on the British acting scene, I think, unless you had that at least
if you're of a certain
line.
age.
You're a certain age. If you were like a white man between about 16 and 60, and you were acting around the year 2000, you were in Band of Brothers. That was the rule. That's how it worked. Philip Barantini was one of them, and I think did Stephen Graham turn up in that? I'm not sure, but he was in Snatch around the same time, so it's entirely possible that he was. But they were friends. They knew each other from the acting scene, and Barantini wanted to go into directing and start that, and turned to Stephen Graham and said, "Would you do this short film for me?" He said no. He went away, made the first film, showed Stephen Graham, and Stephen Graham said, "Cool, what else you got?" And he came up with this idea for a short film that would then get expanded and become Boiling Point. The pair of them made the short film together, and then years later, based on the strength of that short film, have gone and expanded it into a full film. This has been made using another friend's restaurant, and I think this is the actual Andy Jones, because the character is Andy Jones, and there is a real Andy Jones as well. And this is actually his restaurant, apparently, that they have taken over for a weekend. I think they took over, during the week before it opened. So they literally got the run of this place. They got to deck it out for Christmas in March, and they did this thing. It's designed to look like a wanna, like a single shot.
Yes.
And it's played as if it is a free-flowing, energetic stage play. It's very Birdman at times. It has something of a less cerebral, more traumatically charged Birdman with Stephen Graham. And now, Stephen Graham is an actor that you and I know above all else can more than handle this. I mean, his work the last few years, Line of Duty, he got a lot of plaudits for as well. I tend to think of him as someone who shows up in really bad movies like Hellboy and then turns out to be the best thing in them, like nearly always. And of course, he'll always be Tommy from Snatch to me. But here this is arguably, I think this is the meatiest role he's had to date. And there's a great supporting cast in there. I'm trying to look up the name of his supporting head chef, but as you pointed out, Jason Fleming.
Jason Fleming's in that. Vinette Robinson plays his sous chef in it, who is holding the kitchen together even more than he is. So basically, Andy Jones, his character in this, is falling apart a little bit in his day-to-day life, which has a knock-on effect of his responsibilities within the kitchen. So he makes rookie errors, and it's such a... What I like about this and why it captures your attention right from the beginning is you can almost relate to this, right? And this scenario. So you've got a health and safety guy that's in the first first like 10 minutes. Who is the most pedantic. Yeah. You've got like the most pedantic, annoying, sarcastic, in your face health and safety test checker, and you've got Stephen Graham's Andy Jones, who is just, he's had enough and the shift hasn't even started yet. And when you say the title of the movie is Boiling Point, you feel like you're on the edge of his boiling point throughout the entirety of this movie. And the great thing that Stephen Graham does is he never quite tips over the edge, because when he realizes that a lot of the fault is he's the first to apologize. And so you kind of have this like constant like, oh my goodness, is he just going to absolutely fall apart, or is he going to pull it together? And the team around him is experiencing their own kind of boiling point. So you have these really interesting dynamics between the kitchen staff, the waiting staff, the front of house lady, and the sous chef. They have a real tete-a-tete in this, which I think is a really great piece of acting from both sides. And you realise that all of them have their own problems. And then on top of that, you have this secondary layer of amazing support cameo roles in someone. Like, for instance, you have Jason Fleming, who is a frenemy of Andy Jones. So he's another chef.
You describe him as a frenemy, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's a chef who's just got, like, he just picks at him, and it's really frustrating, and you can see that boiling point hitting again. And then for the waitresses, you have tables of just, well, firstly, there's a despicable table of customers who are inadvertently racist, and having to deal with one of the waitresses who comes along unseemingly and has to kind of just put up with them, and it makes my skin crawl. And that's what keeps you absolutely glued to the screen on this.
That's a thing as well. Now, just personal side, have you ever actually worked in a restaurant or service? So this is the thing. If you've had even a day of doing that, the minute you start watching, it's like, that this definitely brings back the PTSD.
Yeah.
When you said that about that's one flaw I will give the film, incidentally. When they get to the customers, there is an element there's a social media element introduced that does distinctly feel like it was written by a man in his late 40s.
Yeah.
It really does feel like that's a man in his late 40s who, like, put it this way, I mean, I would never claim to be a social media aficionado, but I would describe myself as more current than what this film would depict, and I am way, way behind, as teenagers tell me very often. Going back, because we were looping this back to films we were discussing earlier, Jason Fleming, we didn't get to mention, is also like the chief villain of the 355, so he does get to turn up, thanks to theatrical release shuffling, does get to turn up as the villain of 2 movies opening in cinemas this week. Also, because you mentioned mentioned 28 Days Later when we were talking about Mother Android. Ray Pantaki, who plays the secondary chef.
Chef, yeah.
The second head chef, as
Very
it were.
passionate about his food and like he has a
he's
bit
the
of
cool one, isn't he? He's the cool one.
Yeah, he's the cool one, but he knows he's good at his job. And then, for instance, there's a moment where a customer sends back the lamb because they say it's not cooked enough, and he just he reaches his own boiling point.
That's how you cook it. Yeah. But he was He was one of the soldiers in 28 Days Later, so they still sort of keep looping back on us.
I like Ray Patanki. I think he's a really good actor, and he pops up in small but meaty roles in a lot of British movies and TV shows.
We keep saying meaty a lot in relation to this restaurant movie.
It made me hungry.
It did me. Some of those dishes look really good. Vinette Robinson, as you point out, scene stealer in this, she actually won the BIFA for Best Actress, I think, for this. This movie got nominated for 11 British Independent Film Awards, and actually took home 4. So which does make me wonder if we're going to hear about this again when it rolls, not so much obviously international awards, but I think when we roll around to BAFTAs, I think we're going to see this. And did Supernova have its time yet, or have we still got that role?
It has had its time. It has had its time, and I don't think it's done the business that I would have liked it to have done, I suppose, in a way. But that's just from a personal thing to help my buddy out. But yeah, there's movies. I think, look, if you're putting those two against each other, if you're looking at something like Supernova, it's got the gloss. It's got the gloss, and this has got the grit.
Yeah. They're very different, very, very different films. But in terms of, like, you know, buzzworthy British films, I will say, as far as restaurant movies go, this is not sparklingly original. I mean, you could describe this as a sort of sour-faced British version of Waiting. You could describe it as a higher caliber version of Caffeine, a movie that nobody remembers exists except me because it was released direct to DVD in 2006 and features Mina Savari with the worst British accent you have ever heard in your life. I got to use that for a university paper once, and I am so proud of it. Did it entirely from memory, remembered every credit. It was great. Boiling Point, though, vastly superior, though I don't think as fun as Waiting. You know I'm biased, though. Would you recommend this? I
definitely would, because you know what? I went into this going, I'll give it a watch, see what it's like, and I actually couldn't put it down. I think it's the tracking or this one shot thing where you're following people around. It really kept me engaged, and I thought it was a really clever technique. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough.
Let's give that a shout out, because I think it's Matthew Lewis who's done the cinematography on this, frequent collaborator with Philip Barantini through, because I think this is his second feature. The first one is a sort of forgettable Mockney gangster thing called Villain, starring Craig Fairbrass, so you can probably picture every minute of that 90-minute epic. But mostly short films. Matthew Lewis seems to be his frequent collaborator, cinematographer on a lot of these. There is a very fine balance struck between immersion and observation, I think, with this. And it does teeter on a knife edge, the way it follows the characters through that. And I think all the way up to that very bold closing shot, I do think this works quite well.
Welcome back to Off Screen, and now we're moving you from the big screen down to the small screen with all of your top Freeview picks for this week. Kicking off with tonight. You know, we couldn't go into the new year without, you're going to think I'm going to say a romantic comedy or something like that. No, a horror thriller. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take you back to 1992 at 5-star at 11:15 tonight with Candyman. Don't say his name 5 times in the mirror.
Did you know that was a question on the Big Fat Quiz of the Year this year? Was how do you summon the Candyman?
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, and they couldn't seem to agree, could they? I think everyone said it was 3 times, and yeah. Anyway, although I do like the idea that you have to say it 3 times to say it 5 times. So technically, James Acaster did win. But so the 1992 Candyman, which you can watch this one if you've been waiting to see the new one that came out like 3 months ago, the Nia DaCosta reboot of the Candyman series. This is the original that leads directly into those events. So that's kind of a generational sequel. This is the story of the Chicago college professor who starts to look into the urban legend of the so-called Candyman, delving into the story of the slave who was killed in the name of forbidden love, who was mutilated and tortured, and who is now back to exact his revenge. But is he really, or is he just looking for a new love? And when you've got a narrative that complex, and for a villain, who do you get but the great Tony Todd? I love that man. He's become, and this made him a staple of the horror genre. This is what gave him his creds. Every guy in the horror genre, every actor in the horror genre, male or female, has an iconic character to their name. Like you have Brad Dourif has Chucky, Robert Englund has, Freddy, Kane Hodder has Jason. You've got all these actors have these great roles, and for Tony Todd, that is the Candyman. I say this with such love because I even have the action figure still to this. I have my McFarlane action figure of Tony Todd as the Candyman. This, as I say, led to a really great reboot call at the end of last year from Nia DaCosta. The Great Candyman. Check this out. Bernard Rose's 1992 original on 5-star tonight, 11:15. Good time of night for it as well. Go to sleep with a good old chill. But of course, Bex, for Saturday, we need something a bit more thrilling, a bit more actiony. Let's go for something a bit earlier in the evening as well. What you got for me?
What have I got for you? I've got The Rock, of course. I mean, who else would I go for? The Rock and Nev Campbell, actually, in this, which it's good to see her back.
Campbell.
There we go. It's on Channel 4 at 9:30 p.m. It's kind of a perfect Saturday night movie for you, really. It is Skyscraper. It's the movie that spawned the poster, that spawned the geeks who said this could never possibly happen. He could not jump at that angle from that crane onto the skyscraper. It became a meme in itself. But you know what? The movie, so much fun.
It really is. And to be honest with you, I think they missed a trick not calling this Rock Hard, personally. But, it would have been a good time. And, of course, we all remember that sequence in which he leaps over the crane to jump into the building. It's good fun, this one. Is this the one where The Rock has an artificial leg? I think he does, doesn't he? It's like a fake... I
can't remember. I mean, I watched
one
it
of his
and enjoyed
tricks.
it. Yeah, I can't remember. I watched it and enjoyed it, but I didn't really take too much away from it, if you know what I mean.
It's not a keeper. It's not one that keeps with you, this one.
No, it's not. It's almost like the one where he's got that... What is it? He's got that oversized gorilla that he's been looking after. That
was the one before this. I think that was Rampage, because he keeps doing the same movie. The Rock has this thing where he's not just a guy who does one job. He's always an ex-something who's now doing another job, and the previous skill set is going to come into play. Kind of like Jason Statham. Jason Statham's job always comes with X hyphen before it, no matter what movie he's in. Ex-cop, ex-Navy SEAL, ex-Black Ops, just ex-something, and it's always military. This is the same thing. He's a soldier who's turned into a security expert who has to John McClane his way through, wouldn't you know it, there happens to be an expensive state-of-the-art Chinese skyscraper, because who loves China more than action stars? And you can see this for yourself, 9:30 tomorrow night on 4. I think it's quite a banger. It's not going to stick with you. It's not got a great villain or anything, but it's got The Rock.
It's a great Saturday night movie.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's a great Towering Inferno,
Absolutely. It's a great Saturday night movie, and actually what a great Sunday night movie is going to be for you guys. It's something that will get your toes tapping. If you are a fan of Elton John, you will be wanting to learn about his life story in Rocket Man. That is on Film 4 at 9 o'clock on Sunday. Stars Taron Egerton expertly playing Elton John himself. We've also got Richard Madden as well, who plays his agent, his booker, manager.
He is, in fact, his agent. On which note, let's have a little listen to the pair of them.
What's this? Number 11 in Italy. The song doesn't work. That's the problem. The record's coked out MOR. The problem is you have never understood me and what I have to go through. And you know what? I should have sacked you when you left me.
I am glad I left you. It means I can maintain some objectivity in your self-indulgent, myopic little world. Get in the studio, make some music or don't. I don't care.
Well, you will when your money runs out.
Do your worst. In fact, take me to court. You signed contracts with me years ago, so I'll still be collecting my 20% long after you've killed yourself.
That's Madden basically throwing the hammer down with Elton there. And interesting thing, I always find it really odd that Bohemian Rhapsody won so many awards. This just barely got a look in.
This one I think is a little bit more divisive. For me, it went a bit slightly more avant-garde than what people...
More surreal.
It is more surreal. It's kind of like people really like knowing the story, and sometimes that can just take a more traditional point of view. It felt quite self-indulgent. I mean, obviously Elton is a exec producer on this. He's probably funded the whole thing. Who knows? I don't think it went that far as to say he's just like dictated everything about this, but there's definitely this flamboyance and this air that takes it beyond your traditional scope of movie formats.
Just real quick, as we're pushed for time, do you know the story of how this came to be, this movie? like the version we got. So this was Tom Hardy originally. Tom Hardy was going to star in Rocketman. It turns out Tom Hardy cannot carry a tune to save his life, and they were seriously exploring having someone else do it, like just do the vocals. Elton then went and did Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and was allowed to do pretty much whatever he wanted, as you can see from the dumpster fire that is the finished film. But because they were so accommodating to him, and he happened to take to this very pretty young actor who he had all his scenes with, go figure, he then decided, you know what, out with this Mad Max chap. Let's get this guy in instead. He seems more likable. Apparently he was Eddie D. Eagle. The director likes him. And that's how we wound up with Rocketman. I'd argue
also,
we got a better movie out of it.
Yeah, and also Taron Egerton can sing because he was in Sing. So,
exactly.
you know, yeah, I think that makes sense. Right, let's move swiftly on, and we're going to just coast past a couple of more picks on here, which is on Tuesday night, we've got American Animals on film for 11:50 p.m. Quite a late one.
We skipped Monday, as we can't deny Julia her Oscar. She won an Oscar for this Monday night,
gang.
5-star, 11:30. Julia Roberts' Oscar win this one. Erin Brockovich, which is now a Disney Plus TV series, would you believe, starring Katie Sagal.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, it is. Sorry to coast by you, Julia. That smile, I don't know how I went past it and didn't notice it. Erin Brockovich, probably Julia Roberts, well, quite well-deserved Oscar-winning movie, and you know, it is also one of her finest movies that I think we've seen out there. So perfect for a Monday night for you, 5-star, 11:30 p.m. Coasting on to Tuesday, American Animals on film for at 11:50 p.m.
I will always pick this one because I think it's a movie everybody should watch. Half documentary, half narrative feature. Stars, what's his name? Evan, you know, from WandaVision and American Horror Story, and I can never remember.
Evan Peters.
That's it. Yeah. Quicksilver. Evan Peters stars Evan Peters and Barry Keoghan, and this is an absolutely bonkers true story of an art heist at an American community college, in which we get a documentary portion in which the actual guys tell us what they did and why they did it, and the actors go and do it. And it's really well done. It'll keep you guessing. It's a great movie. Barry Keoghan, absolutely brilliant in it. Just go and see it purely for Barry Keoghan. Beyond that, another movie, Wednesday night, Paramount, 10 p.m. Actioner that I have to recommend over and over again. And also, I think one of John Travolta's finest hours, because he's the villain in this. It is the 2004 adaptation, Jonathan Hensleigh's adaptation of The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane. This one goes full grit nasty. This is back when Marvel were just selling off the rights here, there, and everywhere to all their films. Lionsgate made this, and they made this as a hard R-rated action thriller. And it's great. It's a genuinely great movie. I would argue probably the best attempt anyone made to do The Punisher until the second season of Daredevil and John Bernthal, which has its fans and has its detractors, but I think this is arguably the best. But let's talk about a stone cold classic, Bex. Thursday night, round out our week, 9 p.m. Great movies. What you got for us?
Well, I've got a little trip to Jack Rabbit Slim's for you, because this is the movie that is one of my favourite movies of all time. I think it's a lot of people's favourite movies of all time. It's the Quentin Tarantino classic that is Pulp Fiction. You have Halloween dress-ups as Mia Wallace for years to come. You have the amazing slickness of all of its cast. It reinvented and re-emerged John Travolta back into the spotlight. It created an iconic monologue for Samuel L. Jackson, and it just brought Zed back from the dead.
And you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
What do they call a Big Mac?
Big Mac's a Big Mac, but they call it Le Big Mac.
Le Big Mac. What do they call a Whopper?
I don't know. I didn't go on a Burger King. You know what they put on French fries in Holland instead of ketchup?
What?
Mayonnaise. I seen them do it, man. They drown them in it.
You know what it also did? We never give it credit for this. It also revived the career of Bruce Willis. Like,
well,
he
that's
never
what I
gets,
mean.
he never gets credit for that. Bruce Willis, we all forget, was on a real downslope about 93, 94. I mean, find me anybody who's even seen Striking Distance, his speedboat action thriller, also co-starring Sarah Jessica Parker as his love interest, and I'll find you a liar. But But yeah, Pulp Fiction, what a way to round out the week. 9 p.m. Thursday, perfect time for it as well. You can be tucked away in your bed by midnight. It's a long
Lovely.
film, but with adverts.
It's a long but great film.
You can be in the land of nod for midnight, and you can be doing so having seen out your week with a stone cold Tarantino classic. Welcome back for one last ride off screen. And Bex, let's go down that DVD and Blu-ray aisle for one choice picking, because I don't know if you're aware of this, and you know how I wanted to start your new year with a smile, start as we mean to go on. So, as it happens, this week on DVD and Blu-ray, the big new release is Annette.
Oh, off.
You know what? I'm going to let you have that. We'll have that with a bleep. You can have that. We don't do it very often. I think that film deserved it. So may we start, as the film would say.
Oh my God. Yeah. Avoid like the plague or the pandemic. Avoid like both.
Avoid self-isolate from this movie. Yeah.
Oh
one that you don't need to self-isolate from, luckily, is, it's not brilliant, but it's a bit middle of the road, but it's not great. Coming to streaming on the 7th of January, which is obviously today. Let's talk about the other film that's out today, because we've already reviewed Mother Android with Chloe Moretz. That is on Netflix today. Okay. Also out today, and this we reviewed a few weeks ago. This is the new movie directed by George Clooney, stars Ben Affleck and Ty Sheridan, and it's The Tender Bar. This is J.R. Moringa's memoir that got adapted by, is it William Monahan? William Monahan, I think, did The Departed, adapted this for the screen. Story of, coming-of-age story, a young man's time growing up in his uncle's bar.
I know a lot of guys that think they're writers, and you'll find in life that most of them are not. Here's the thing. You gotta have it. I don't know what it is, but if you don't have it immediately, you never get it. And I say you got it.
Oh, I knew it. Oh, I knew it. I knew it. There's something.
Calm down. I didn't say you were good. I said, you could be.
I think Ben Affleck was by far the best thing out of this. Everyone wants an Uncle Charlie.
He was great in this,
yeah. Everyone wants an Uncle Charlie. The thing is, this movie just never really kind of takes flight like it should. But it's a good movie in itself. If you want to kind of watch like a Wonder Years kind of look and feel, set in the 70s kind of movie, then this is good. Ty Sheridan's good in this. You know, that's all we can say about it. It's like, it's good. It's okay.
I just find myself thinking only George Clooney could have the unmitigated balls to go up to Ben Affleck, going through everything he was going through at the time, and say, do you want to just come and spend like 3 months hanging out in a bar? Just seems like the dumbest move imaginable. Going to, Saturday. They've got a hell of a one for Saturday. So, on Amazon Prime, this one's a classic. It stars one of the most beloved actors of the last century, the great Robin Williams. It is, of course, Dead Poets Society. Oh, Captain, my Captain.
My Captain. I was just about to say that, because how can you not say that when you're talking about Dead Poets Society? I could watch this film every month. Yeah. It's amazing. And, when you think of like Robin Williams coming out of things like Morecambe Mindy and all this kind of stuff, and then he throws you something like this, it's just incredible to see the depth and breadth of him.
Have you ever thought about how weird that is? Like, he was a sitcom actor who just turned out to be this one of the great entertainers of particularly our generation and the two before us as well. The two before us as well. Just imagine a sitcom actor today with that level of ability. Like, I don't see Jim Parsons knocking that out anytime soon. You know what I mean? Maybe Neil Patrick Harris, possibly, but that'd be about it.
No, he's not. There was only one Robin Williams, and there was so much that made him so iconic, and gone but never ever forgotten is Robin Williams. And you can rewatch films like this just to remind yourself of how great he was.
I think Mrs. Doubtfire is usually over on Netflix. You can usually find Mrs. Doubtfire as well on Netflix.
Yeah, so anything like that. I just any even Flubber. You could even watch Flubber.
Flubber's a classic.
You still love him. Moving swiftly on though from Dead Poets Society is another great film. Actually, it's a film that made me really enjoy watching Wes Anderson movies, and that is not The French Dispatch. It is the Grand Budapest Hotel. I love this film, and this is a film where you just definitely think that Ralph Fiennes should do more comedy because he's so damn good at it.
This is Ralph Fiennes by way of Peter Sellers, because it's a very Peter Sellers performance, and the whole production has that energy of this is what would have happened if we'd had an auteur capable of generating a film that looked like this back when Peter Sellers was alive, and it works. It's an incredible movie. I mean, the way that it employs different styles of filmmaking, up to and including stop motion and paper cut animation, things like that. Really great movie. Also, Tony Revolori. I adore Tony Revolori in this, and his relationship with Saoirse Ronan, which is very sweet, very tender. But of course, it's a Wes Anderson movie, so it's got that all-star cast as well, including Edward Norton and Adrian Brody. This is the thing.
Tilda Swinton.
I can go through this cast list with you, reel off 50 names, and I'll still miss 10. I'll still forget 10. Yeah. It's a Wes Anderson movie, isn't it?
Every time you watch a Wes Anderson movie, you kind of go, the first thing you kind of go to is who's in it. Who's in it again,
He's the new Woody Allen, effectively. That's what seems to have happened. He has, I think, supplanted Woody Allen as this is where you go for the acting troupe. This is where the top-tier cast list goes. I mean, there's really him or Nolan, but Nolan's not quite as broad with it. And I love that. I think it really works. And I like that his animation style has led to other solo animation ventures like Isle of Dogs, Fantastic Mr. Fox, things like that. And the French Dispatch doesn't quite work, but his fans do seem to adore it. Other one that does seem to be quite adored, so much so that I put this on my top 10 of last year list on the 12th of January, which is next Thursday, I want to say. Next Thursday. Amazon Prime are adding The Father, starring Best Actor winner twice Best Actor winner Anthony Hopkins. This was a great one, wasn't it?
This was a masterclass from Anthony Hopkins. Whatever you thought about the Oscars last year, and whatever you were expecting from the Best Actor winner, the best man won in this, because I think Sir Anthony Hopkins pulled off something that I think is heartbreaking, mesmerizing. This was based on a play, was it?
This was based on Florian Zeller's own play. He won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. This took home 2 Oscars. It was Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Actor. You said that the Best Actor won. I'll argue the Best Living Actor won this one, because there was the expectation that this was going to go to Chadwick Boseman, and the narrative had been played as such with the ceremony that had it ended with a posthumous win for Chadwick Boseman, and his widow was going to accept on his behalf. This was apparently all prepped, and everybody was expecting that this was how it was going to go. But Anthony Hopkins won, and he didn't expect to win, so much so that because he was shielding and everything from COVID, he wound up accidentally creating problems for the poor production team of the Oscars, because he couldn't do a Zoom call at 4 a.m. Who could? Only maniacs like you and I were up at 4 a.m. doing video links for the Oscars.
Absolutely. It's the man's like 83. Give him a break. He doesn't want to be up at 4 a.m. unless he's going for a wee.
I'm 38 and I don't want to be up at 4 a.m, let alone 80. Jesus.
Well, The Father is definitely worth your time. If you didn't catch it in the last award season, definitely do. And something else that Van is going to tell you now to definitely catch when it comes out on streaming is
Eternals is finally coming to streaming on Thursday. So this is coming to Disney Plus free access. This is something of a controversial Marvel Studios movie, as in this is the one that didn't make $1 billion and become universally loved the second it was released. I can't quite understand that personally, because I think it's
really loved it.
I think it's contrarianism. I find it incredibly interesting that as soon as when Chloe Zhao directs Nomadland and The Rider and things like that, she's the hottest ticket in town. But God forbid she do anything that is designed to make money. I mean, I kind of love that. And she's since gone on to saying that she wants to do other genre projects like Star Wars and things like that, and I hope she does. I hope she only makes franchise IP things for the rest of her life, just to spite the Cardigans, because the way they treated Eternals was downright disgraceful. I think this is a really fun, really vivid, really bright and inventive film, as you can hear right here.
Cut! Okay, everyone, that was good. We can do 10% better. That was beautiful. Very, very good. Ah! My friends from college are here. Sure. Oh, boss! Perfect timing. Welcome to the set of Shandar Dastane Icarus. I'm playing you. You like the costume?
We need to talk.
Tell the director I have some notes for him.
We need to talk to you in private.
Oh, Karan, he's worked with me for 50 years. I trust him completely. Actually, when we first met, he thought I was a vampire, and he tried to stake me through the heart.
I have apologized so many times.
Not quite enough times. Very close, though. I'll let you know. Oh, I have to get ready for the next scene. Come to my tent. We'll talk there.
Kumail Nanjiani. You had me at Kumail, I'm not going to lie. You always get me when you cast Kumail in anything. But you've not seen Eternals?
No, I've not seen this, but I will do it on your recommendation because when it comes out on Disney Plus, because I think, you talk about the Cardigans, and I think from a critic's point of view, I don't know anyone that is as passionate and knowledgeable about Marvel and as you are. And you get the intricacies. You'll call it out if it's not a good film, and you'll say if it is, very honestly about this. So, and actually, when I've gone and watched something within this franchise that you've recommended, you've not been wrong. So I trust your view. Even if it is different to everyone else's.
This is a lot more old school sci-fi for Marvel as well. This is like the ancient aliens theory. This is like the pyramids were built to dock space stations.
Is this like Stargate?
Kind of like. This is kind of like Stargate. In fact, it's closer to Dune. Imagine if Dune had to have a Starbucks in it, and you'd basically have this movie.
Wow,
that's what it is. If it had to have a Starbucks and a volcano in it, that's what you'd get.
Well, there we go. So that is the Eternals. Watch out for Dune with a Starbucks, and you won't be dissatisfied from it. But
that's it. I'm now going to call it that forever. Eternals is Dune with a Starbucks and a volcano. That is it.
So we started this block by telling you very much to avoid Annette and very much to embrace the Eternals, and that kind of rounds off our streaming DVD and Blu-ray section for this week.
You know who's back next week, though, because you've already mentioned her in relation to Skyscraper in the Freeview section. Neve Campbell's back on screens next week.
Is she screaming?
She's screaming Scream, as it's called, or Scream 5, or 5 Cream, or I think they should call it 5 Cream. Like, just change the S to a 5 and just call it 5 Cream. We'll call it Scream. We'll verbalise it as Scream. It's only ever going to get called Scream, because when you went to the sequels, you said, can I just have a ticket for Scream? We'll just call it Scream. That's fine. But 5 Cream. It's 5 Cream to us. And that is out next week alongside Cyrano, which we get to look forward to, and the much-delayed final instalment of the Hotel Transylvania series, Hotel Transylvania 4 Transformania, is out on Amazon Prime next week, so we can look forward to reviewing those three next week. Cyrano with Peter Dinklage, 5 Cream or Scream 5 or Scream, whatever you want to call it, which is going to have the returning Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette ensemble, and of course Hotel Transylvania Transformania, which doesn't star Adam Sandler, it is worth pointing out.
Oh, interesting. Well, that has been a rip-roaring start to 2022 for all of you guys. If you guys are thinking, I'm just staying in and hibernating and wanting to watch some great movies, then hopefully you'll have something to pick from our great selection this week. But for now, I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.